Hey guys, this is Julie, the main stamper. I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, and I am so happy to be back today with another episode in my series titled Mondays Are Hard, Stamping Shouldn't Be. So in this series, we are exploring beautiful cards that are made with minimal efforts and minimal product to get fabulous results. And today's card is going to be this beautiful card here with the Rooted in Nature stamp set. So we are going to be using one stamp set as always. This stamp set happens to be huge. There are 2 stamp cases in this stamp set. There are so many stamps they couldn't even fit it into one case. So you've got all kinds of tree varieties in here. You've got leaves, you've got sentiments. This is actually just one stamp set, part 1 and 2. So we're using one stamp set as always. We are using 2 colors of ink. Today we've got Mossy Meadow and Early Espresso. So those are our 2 ink colors for this card. And then we've got 2 colors of cardstock. We've got Early Espresso and Sahara Sand. So with all of those minimal supplies and a few minimal efforts on our part, we're going to get this beautiful card. So follow me please and see how quick and easy this one goes together. Okay, so always our first step on any card is to take our cardstock and fold that base in half. So I just fold it in half, take my bone folder and give it a nice score. To get that crisp line, I like to flip it around, fold it the opposite way, and score it again. So this is what I like to do to get that really nice, crisp, and even inner score. So that's our base, and normally I say set the base aside. We're going to do all kinds of other things, but today we're actually going to work with the base first. So we're going to take our Early Espresso ink, and we're going to take the stamp that looks kind of like a tree trunk, a log cutaway maybe. It's got some tree rings in it, and we're going to stamp this in our Early Espresso ink, and we're going to actually create a background pattern on the back of our card base itself. So we're going to stamp around the outside edges, overlap as well. It doesn't matter if you've got perfect inked images here or not, because this is just kind of giving us an overall pattern around the base of the Early Espresso card so that we can have some interest. I love to have a lot of interest on cards. I like for my cards to have so many things that you have to look at them for a couple of minutes to really see what's going on. So we've got this all stamped around the outside edge, and this is all set. So we're going to now set our card base aside. And while we have out the Early Espresso ink, we're going to take this piece of Sahara Sand, and we're going to use the big deciduous tree stamp on this one. So we're going to get this inked up. It's possible that I need to put some more ink on my ink pad and re-ink it. So this is why all those ink refills are very important. So we're going to stamp the tree, and we're actually going to stamp it off just a little bit off of our paper. The whole thing doesn't show as we get this layered onto our card. So we're going to stamp off a little bit, leaving room top and bottom for some extra layers. Looks like I smudged a little bit here, but I'm okay with that because I'm probably going to cover most of that up. In fact, we're going to bring in this layering strip right now, and we're going to put this on our card. I like to use all those little bits and pieces of my card layers because as card makers, we trim our cards and use different size pieces of paper, and we end up with all these little tiny scraps. I like to add those scraps onto my card just to give it extra interest. So I'm putting that little piece right there, and we're going to set that one aside for right now. So this is another layering piece. We've got 3 different pieces: Sahara Sand, Espresso, and Sahara Sand again. So this one we're just going to tear the edges off of. We're giving this like a little bit of a rough cut here. So just simply start at the top, tear downward, and we're going to do the same again with the brown. We're going to just create a rough edge. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no specific pattern or size. These are going to be layered together on our card, and so eventually they're going to be put together just like that. And then on this last piece of Sahara Sand, we're going to bring in our Mossy Meadow ink, and we're going to create a variegated leaf pattern. So we're just going to put some different leaves on here in, nice little varying way. So stamp them every which way you want to. Just kind of get a few leaves on there. I like when they come in off the sides a little bit more than just like a straight stamp right down the middle. So you can kind of see them kind of creeping in a little bit. And I just like to add them in until I feel like I have enough. And I think that I want one more down here. So I think that's really pretty. I like it. So next we're going to do the same thing with this piece of paper. We're going to actually tear it top to bottom. So I kind of missed a little bit there. Once you get going, if you just pull a little bit at a time, you won't like miss pieces and have to start over like I did with this one. So while we've got this in our hands and we've got the green in our hands, I'm going to do a little edging along the edges of this. Where the frayed cardstock is, I'm just adding a little bit of ink on here to give that a little bit more depth. And just like that, we're going to go ahead and assemble these 3 pieces together. So I am a Tombow glue fanatic. I'm looking at my card and I'm seeing that I also put a little bit of green on the edge of this Sahara Sand piece as well. So we're going to just go in here and swipe some of that on there. If you have sponges, you could certainly use your sponges to get that ink onto the edges of your cardstock. So this is where I like to layer a little bit and then leave a shadow or an edge on the end here, just so that you can see both pieces and they overlap just a little bit. And again, we're going to add some glue or adhesive to this piece, and then this one's going to go on here as well. I'm leaving that little, it's almost like a 3-tiered stair step here. So we've got a nice variety of Sahara Sand and then the early espresso. And this actually, we can start putting some of these layers on our card. It's going together very quickly today. So here's our base again, and here's the tree that we stamped earlier, and we did put a little strip of early espresso onto our Sahara Sand here. So we're going to just put this over here on the card, and then I'm going to layer this piece over top. And I like to have cards with layers. So as you're watching me make all of these cards that I make, I like a heavy card. I like to push the envelope for the postage requirements. I actually, oftentimes I weigh my cards just to make sure I only need 1 stamp. I try to keep it under 1 stamp, but sometimes I do add a few extra layers. So again, you can kind of see the tiering that's going on here on the side. I really like the combination of light and dark, and then it goes across here. So there's really only a couple more things we're going to do with this card today. I have a scrap of the Sahara Sand, and on this scrap we're going to do 2 things. We're going to take our early espresso ink, making sure I've got the right one here, and we're going to stamp our sentiment. Now the sentiment on the card is cut into 3 pieces. The stamp is just a single stamp, so you stamp it onto your Sahara Sand with the early espresso, and then we do a little fussy cutting. There is no die for this one, but this is certainly an easy fussy cut, because all you're doing is you're going along the straight lines and you're just cutting down each of these to cut them out, and they're super easy to cut out. And I do have some that I pre-cut as well and stamped, and I actually have these are a little bit darker than this one. Again, my ink, I use a lot of ink. I stamp a lot. I make a lot of cards. So I need to keep in mind that I need to refill my ink pads with some ink. And I'm probably going to do a video on that as well, just so that you guys can see how that all goes together if you have questions. But we've got Be Strong, Be Happy, and Be You. And I'm just going to use a little adhesive and I'm going to layer them on here. I'm layering them on here. I've got double sides on these, as I stamp sometimes more than once. The paper's all 2-sided, so I flip it over if I'm not happy and I stamp again. So we've got Be Strong, Be Happy, and here is Be You. And you could certainly mix these up if you wanted to, and you could put, Be You at the top. You could, however you want them to go. But I like them on here in the same order that the stamp set has them in words. So fussy cut those out, put them on here. You don't have to be super fussy cutting these, because we're using the Sahara Sand on Sahara Sand. So even if you've got like a little bit of extra that you didn't fussy cut completely well, it kind of blends in, so it's not super noticeable. On the remainder scrap of my Sahara Sand, I'm taking this bigger leaf stamp and I'm bringing in again the Mossy Meadow ink, and I am going to stamp this. Now if you have the dies for this, you could die cut this. I simply, again, I took my scissors and I fussy cut. And I just went around and did the trimming and so on, and I ended up with this beautiful leaf, cut out. It's not perfect in any sense of the word, but again, it doesn't blatantly say, wow, you missed a spot, you should have trimmed this a little bit higher or lower. It's a card and it's handmade, and that's the important part. I took my took my green ink. This is not Memento, Julie. I took my Mossy Meadow ink, and I just dipped the leaves into, you know, the edges of the leaves into there to give them like a little bit of a darker color on that. And then when I put this on my card, keeping in mind you've got a lot of layers here because Julie likes to make cards with layers, I kind of eyeballed where I wanted it to go. And I actually only put glue where it's really going to hit the most with the layers. So this layer right here is a little bit, you know, this leaf is a little bit higher right there. So when I added this to my card, I just put leaves in a couple of spots. I put glue in a couple spots. Wow, my words are not good today. Probably lots of you guys are watching this without the sound on anyway, which is probably a good thing. So anyway, glue, leaves right there. I left this one open, and I left this one open on this one too. When I make my cards, I usually, you know, I'm showing you how I made them. I'm showing you exactly what I did. So that gives a little bit of depth to it as well. So it's got this little like kind of flyaway leaf right there. But this is the front of our card. That went together super easy, right? Now, inside of the card, we like to give the insides a little bit of love too. So here is the inside of my card. Sahara Sand is a pretty light color. I didn't want to bring in another color and say, hey, you also need white cardstock. So I kept it simple. Sahara Sand is for the inside. And again, I'm going to see if I can get a better ink coverage on this cutaway log for the inside of my card. So I took it, and I don't like to do a full image. I like to just kind of have it peeking a little bit toward the bottom. So there's plenty of room to write whatever you want. You could stamp a sentiment on the inside as well, but there's plenty of room to write on it. And then this would just simply go inside the card base. And again, I'm going to just put a little bit of glue on there, and I'm going to pop this on here. And there she is. And then I'm going to flip this over and just press it this way from the back, because if I don't, sometimes I'm pressing it this way and I'm smearing my ink all over the card. And you can see my hands get really inky too. So there it is. It was super quick, super easy. I hope you enjoyed this one. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's card that we made with the Rooted in Nature stamp set. Now keep in mind that this stamp set also has coordinating dies, and they are called the Nature's Roots dies. So there are dies, if you're not a fan of fussy cutting, there are dies available that could also make your life really easy. Instead of fussy cutting, you just use the dies and you can trim out some of these pieces. But this card, again, from my Mondays Are Hard Stamping Shouldn't Be series, is trying to just be a really simple, I have a stamp set, I have a couple colors of ink, I have a couple colors of cardstock. So I'm trying to show you how quick and easy you can put cards together with those few minimal supplies. I hope you're enjoying my video series, and I really hope that you're in your craft room, you're making cards, you're sending them out to people. Spread the love and the cheer. Everyone needs that extra little happy mail. And I would like to see you again next week for another episode of Mondays Are Hard, Stamping Shouldn't Be. So have a great week, everybody. Bye.